Welcome to the Future of Less Work, where we're piecing together the transformation of work one question at a time. I'm Nirit Cohen, and with me today is Mark Dixon, founder and CEO of the International Workplace Group, a company that has been at the forefront of hybrid work before we called it hybrid work. Mark, welcome to the Future of Less Work.
Hello, great to meet you.
We're in 2025 now, and we're still debating RTO, hybrid, the future of where we work. You were already asking these questions back I think it was 1989. I read somewhere that you noticed people having meetings in coffee shops, and that triggered the establishment of Regis. Tell me about that.
Look, it's right from the beginning. It was about creating a platform for productive work. I have to just sort of remind you, in 1989, there was no internet, very few mobile phones. In fact, they all weighed
Yeah, big
20
suitcases. I
pounds.
remember.
So, um, and so work was much more about a place because you need to go somewhere to use equipment. But it was always about a platform for work. It was about saying that people don't all need or want to work in one place all the time. They need to be supported with great people in a great environment, and they need to be able to go to wherever they need to go to do their work. This was pre-homework, pre all of this, and that early business model, which was about the original business plan was opening up in the 12 European capitals at the time, became something else within a year because there was a lot of demand for this sort of idea of platform working, even pre the internet.
That's actually fascinating because when I talk about the future of work in keynotes, right? I always tell the story about how work used to be a place you went to because everything was connected with cables to the wall, right? I mean, the big clunky computers, even when we had laptops, right? We had the modem, right? That was
Yeah.
through a phone, and we had the answering machine, which was, high tech back in the early 90s. So you actually, I'm wondering, where did it make sense when everything was connected to the wall and
Well,
therefore the desk was a place?
it made sense, but for a slightly different reason. So it's also about the ease of use, and for a company that's employing people and for the people that are using the place of work. So right from the beginning, that's what it was about. So if you imagine our early customers, these were customers like Bell Atlantic, Toyota, KitchenAid. They used us across a number of locations. They didn't we started in Brussels, but they also used us in Amsterdam. Then they used us in Frankfurt, Germany, and so on as we grew. So they needed these outposts where we could look after their people, small groups of people in those days, and support them. They could book it easily. It didn't have a lot of no paperwork. They could have it for as long as they want. Everything was included, no capex, and their people were supported in the local language. So it wasn't about, and of course we had all the equipment already there, but it was more fixed equipment in those days, just as you say. So, but it
Yes.
was ready made, ready to go. So it saved all the hassle for the company, and the people were very well supported. So they were more productive from day
Yes.
one.
So space, basically flexible space on demand from the company's perspective. Right? I think if we look at what's happened since then, didn't it start becoming more of a people ish? So a person wants to become the flexible work from anywhere versus the company wants to give them that, which I kind of feel is the debate these days.
It's the companies doing it, not the people. So a few people will make that decision, but mainly it's companies saying what we want is in order, nothing on the balance sheet, no capex. We want flexibility. We want to choose the term with that flexibility. We want our people up and running immediately. We don't want them having to make an office or think about how to decorate it. Everything ready, people walk in the door, start work immediately. And the companies want that, and then they want it in lots of locations. So if you look at big customers of ours, like big tech companies, one of them, for example, we got 25,000 people using us in more than 1,000 locations. And they're coming in by the day. They're coming into hubs, and those by the day and hub, then all the offices are near where they live. That's just 25,000 people in the United States only.
So
Um,
how do you see how did if you have this really great and unique perspective, how did that need evolve since 1989 or 1990 and in the years that
well,
we've
it's sort of
seen.
evolved with technology. So, look, everyone sort of keeps referring back to the pandemic. Now, the pandemic was a catalyst, but technology has been changing the workplace relentlessly
Yeah,
every single year since I started in '89.
yeah.
Internet, even better internet, cloud computing, better mobile phones, smartphones, etc. So all of that is the technology that is the catalyst, not anything else.
Yeah, I know, I agree. The way I've been talking about it, so I talk about how the desk used to be connected with cables to the walls, and then
Yeah,
all those cables got disconnected, right? The phone became mobile, the modem became cloud and
yeah,
and wireless internet, and so basically
yeah,
work stopped being a place you go to. It was something you did, and then you could
yeah.
do it a lot of other
And you
places.
do it continuously. This nonsense about return to office, and I come back to that. People work on the subway. They they work on the subway, on trains, in everywhere. Everyone's working continuously.
So
It's
how
not
do you expect RTO? I mean, explain. How do you explain why leaders and frankly, office buildings were half empty even before the pandemic. I mean,
correct.
when you
It's not.
actually look at data, we know this, right?
Yeah.
I've worked for Intel for almost 30 years, and for the last, I think 20, I haven't had an office. I
No,
was
that's
I was
right.
always going to work where I needed to be. So we know the data shows office buildings have been empty. Why the RTO nonsense?
Well, it is it's because people get asked a question and they answer the question, right? And that's it. So a CEO is asked the question and they said, "What, are you getting everyone back to the office?" Or it's like people aren't working and then they come back to an office, suddenly they start working. Of course, it's nonsense. But what is true about this is this: most people, majority of people, are much better and more productive if they're working from an office. From the simple reason, distraction, having it's all about quiet work, no distractions, leaving where you live, going to a place of work. Now, the issue is if it's just down the road and you can cycle there or it's a 5-10 minute commute, no problem. But it's when you've got to travel for an hour, 2 hours to get to work, then it's a problem because that interferes with your life for
So
no reason.
you're saying, so this goes back to it's not work from home versus work from the office, or the hybrid concept that's a number of days. It's basically give me the ability to work in a place that doesn't cost me, and I mean cost by the travel time, the hassle,
Correct.
everything else,
And
right?
so
We
the
talk
office
about
is
this
still,
15-minute model quite a
yes,
bit. Yeah.
that's civilization. That is progress. If you think about how crazy this is, so workers get up in the morning in Connecticut, they travel with their laptop on the train, go to an office in Manhattan to use the same laptop,
In a desk, on a yeah, with a desk.
as-
Yeah. Yeah.
and then go all the way back. It costs them a lot of money and time, and they're not any more productive.
Yeah,
The
but
thing
but
is,
here's my HR hat answer to that, right? Because work is more than me and my laptop. If it's really me and my laptop, I can do it at home, right? It's
correct,
also it's the conversations, the people you meet, it's the culture that gets formed by
absolutely,
the environment you're in. And if you're not in my office, my being my company, right? But in an office for rent that you're seeing other people in other organizations, that serendipity doesn't necessarily happen for the benefit of the company, which I think is the argument that organizations are
yeah,
making.
I disagree with that.
Please
I
help us
agree. I
understand.
agree with it. 100%. I agree with it. However, it's sort of companies not being very creative. So, two things that have to happen here. Um, First of all, you say, right, working from an office makes sense. For some people, they can work from home. We have ourselves about 3,000 people that work from home. Back office stuff where we can have part-time workers. We get better people, really great people who have kids or want to can't, commute or something like that. Very, very good. That works really well. But so there's some work can be done from home. There's some work that needs to be done from an office. You need to think more. But companies need to be creative. They need to change two things. You've got to invest some of your savings, because you save a lot of money doing this, into the culture of the company. And what we see is companies spending more time and money on curating get togethers of the people. Not
Yes.
this thing where you say, you got to come in for 2 days to an office or three. That's stupid.
Yes,
Really stupid,
I
because like you've got to you've got to come in. It's like an offsite every month.
yes, I actually had a conversation with Jack Hittery, a CEO and
Yeah.
founder of, Sandbox IQ, and he was actually saying exactly that. He said, "The money I saved on
Yeah.
offices, I moved into people's ability to meet, very
Yes.
often," right? And
Yeah.
they
That's it.
go meet wherever it makes sense for them.
Yes. No, go to a hotel because they
Yeah,
got the
or a
facilities.
university site or at your
Yeah.
customers or yes,
And
absolutely.
that changes people's lives. So they say, I'm going there for a reason, not just to go and use my laptop.
Absolutely.
So you've got to invest in two things: the culture done properly. What we're talking, our conversations have become where we didn't speak to HR professionals at all. Now it's about 20% of the conversations are not with the property people, it's with HR, who are saying, how do I change what I'm doing so I can get better people are happier, and I get productivity. But anyway, two things need to change now. One, invest in your culture, have curated meetings, all this stuff about new joiners, bring them into those things, not into the corner of a huge office building. No one will talk to them. It's done properly, curated, get people to do it. So one. Two, change the way you manage. If you can't manage people in an off remotely, then you can't manage them if they're in an office building. So you
Yes,
have
I I
to.
I I totally agree that the management tools need to change because we're
Yes.
used to managing people that we're seeing, we're used to picking up the cues in the corridors, we're used to the meetings coming into the conference rooms, the PowerPoints. So you're right. But I still want to press a little bit because when you talk to HR, so here's the thing, right? We talk about the nuances of culture, right? Because if all I am is me, my work on a screen, right? And I can do this literally from anywhere, then who I work for is as simple as changing the address of my email, right? I can work for you and then I work for somewhere else and I'm sitting in the same space and I have the same kind of day to day and it's just changing my email address.
Yeah.
And HR and leadership worry about um, connectedness and culture and the unique of how and we have to make that unique sense through the physical building. I mean, you walk into an
No, you
Intel,
still
it
have.
doesn't look like what you
Yeah.
walk into a Google, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But you still have that. It's not about closing down your head office. It's not about closing down and not having. We have these companies that we do all over the United States, over the world. We do hubs for them everywhere. We've got all the logo up. These are outposts. So absolutely, you still need that, but you can equally do it at a hotel or a university, as you said, and put all your logos up. It's a much better experience than it
Very.
is if you think. Now, you and I have both been into large offices where you've got 1,000 people, 500 people, and people, they're left on the corners of the buildings. No one talks to them. They just sit there. They know
Yeah.
their neighbors, but there isn't any effort generally to communicate, and the communication is happening by chance, and that's the real change with technology. Don't do things by chance. Coffee machine conversations. Curate it.
Curate them. Okay, perfect.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so let's talk about technology. So let's talk about AI. right?
Hmm.
I just recently wrote a Forbes article called Work Location as a Service, because kind of that vision where AI helps us figure out where we do what kind of work and what locations are available to us and the tools that we need, right?
Yeah.
How do you see this kind of next phase
Well,
of?
we have it already. It's a service we supply to larger corporations where we have an app that allows the corporation to have all their, so Intel, for example, all their own places of work, all our places of work. We have about 30,000 of them around the world, right? So, and the app will select for you. You can change all the rules. So Intel or the company change the rules. So look, when it's near one of our buildings, come in there, or but it allows you to get data on exactly what people are doing, and we have AI on that as well that starts to then look at the behaviours, provide the reporting, and bring people together. So if you and I wanted to have a meeting with four other people, it says what's the most convenient location for those five people.
Yep, and you got me thinking on the curation, which I really love as a concept, right? I mean, as we get more sophisticated in even in layouts and tools, right? Technically, you could turn the office into something that looks like our company look and feel
Yeah,
with some visual stuff on the walls, right?
yeah,
So as you look
yeah.
forward to where we're
It's all
going.
about education, sense of belonging. I mean, this is about football clubs. This is about basketball teams. What do they have? It's a feeling of belonging. So you, as a supporter, a fan, you feel you belong to it.
Exactly,
And
and how
work,
do you make that happen though if I'm working out of I go back to that same question, and because I think that's, the reason I'm pushing on this, right, is because when we see leaders pushing on RTO, and I believe these leaders are smart, they know how to read the writing on the wall. They understand that people are not going to travel an hour in,
yeah,
traffic to the offices, and yet they're pushing. And I really strongly believe, and frankly, they also understand the finances. They know that those empty office buildings are a huge sunk cost, right?
yeah, but
So
you
I
can let
believe
those.
that they
Yeah.
push because they don't know how to create that
Yes.
unique feeling of belonging with a
Yeah.
dispersed workforce.
Yeah, because they haven't yet. It's not high enough on the agenda. But once they start to get staff turnover, because they lose the best people simply because they don't want to commute. They want to waste 2 hours a day. There's no amount of money that can replace that 2 hours lost time in a day. So look, the issue is that is the change is not about RTO, since it's about management. How do you manage your people, and how do you curate your work around the people? Not the management deals with the work, the curation is about the people. So if every morning you open your laptop and someone talks to you and tells you what's going on, it's the same as a coffee machine conversation. So it's about modern technology, a video. This is what's happening. This is what's happening in the company. This is what's happened to our share price. Whatever it is, you
Yeah,
can get
or
it
even
there.
or even curating the people you would meet at the coffee
Yeah,
machine in another way.
in
I
another
totally
way.
agree.
And
What
we do it, by the way. We're totally remote. We're in 122 countries, and we don't we're totally spread out. We don't. So we do this. We've done it for years, like for 25 years, because otherwise we can't keep our people, because they have to have a sense of belonging. They're in Sri Lanka or they're in Indonesia. They've got to feel they're part of us.
So,
Okay.
okay, so you have this personal perspective, right, as a leader that
Mm.
actually needs to create the sense of belonging. So how do you go about curating the feeling that people have that they belong to your
Communication,
organization?
communication, digital, um, uh, Teams calls with lots of people, a few people, people owning projects, and all the things you would do if you were in one office. You do the same thing, but you use the technology to connect people. And by the way, you can do it a lot more frequently. What's interesting is we're doing 50% of our sales these days over Teams. There's no face-to-face meeting. Why? The customer doesn't. They don't want to go somewhere. They don't want to even go downstairs in a building and meet us at reception and do a face to face. They no, do Teams because it's easy. You can do twice as much with Teams. Um, and you don't have to say you want coffee and this and that and that. You because you're there to do business. So it's the technology transforms everything. Companies have to learn how to use the technology. They have to invest in the curation.
Yeah, so it's
And
that's I
those
think
people
that's the other
feel
piece because they
it's
use the technology, but they don't think through how that changes behaviors and
absolutely
management and collaboration.
that's it. Give you one final example. Go back to sports. Manchester United. I happen to be a supporter, football club. Now, Manchester United has, I can't remember the number, but it's like hundreds of millions of supporters. It's in the hundreds of millions all over the world. They have never visited Manchester United football ground. Never. They've never been near it. Never
Yeah.
been to England, but they're in China and they support Manchester United. They support the branding, they support the team and the people, they support everything that's going on there. They feel part of it, having never met anything else. That is a good example.
It is actually. Actually, sports fans is a really good example because you're basically saying you admire from afar,
Yeah,
but you connect and you involve and you build that ecosystem
it
somehow.
part of you. So
So
people ask you, so well, when you're out with, I've never been asked by a woman, but if I'm out with some guys or whatever, sometimes you run out of all conversation. Is like you start talking, so what football team you support? I bet you're a what supporter or something. But it's part of you in the end. It's who you are. It's part of your character,
yes, yes,
and
I
that
would
is,
agree.
and that's what companies are seeking to achieve.
That's
Not,
true. And
not
the how they do that needs to change significantly.
absolutely.
I actually want to ask you, I've seen you, issued a trends forecast report.
Mm.
So what else are you predicting in terms of the change in, the workspace or the how we work or the where we work?
Well, look, everything eventually, not every you. First of all, it's a highly nuanced thing, right? So different workers, different things. And what's absolutely clear is a lot of back office can be done from home, and the people are very happy to do it, are very reliable and loyal, and so on. Still have to invest a bit, not as much, because it's very convenient. You've got to divide up the workers into different groups and um, decide how you can best support them. But a lot of people will be platform working. And that means you choose, exactly as we said at the beginning, you choose where it's most effective for you to work and you work from there. And it becomes easy. And it's all about you as a worker being productive. Okay. It's nothing to do with, yeah, I've got to go to this, I have to go here.
Yeah,
You
it's not
start
a
to
company
manage.
control thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
And,
me
and
and where I am
yeah.
productive.
And it's about investment. Successful companies that I know all have very, very good people. It's not, they can have a great widget, but that great widget or whatever they have has to be accompanied by great people who are motivated to go that little bit further. And it's an HR problem here. And it's about how do you get people, keep people, motivate people to go a little bit further, um, to make successful companies.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder about the ecosystem concept. So when we go back to this idea of a 15-minute from home, we know that certain areas become hubs because it's not just me in my office building and the people, right? It's something else in the environment that's conducive to that. Do you see that there's a difference between setting up an office space here and setting up an office space there in terms of what happens
Yeah,
in different cities?
yeah, it's completely different. Look, so setting up an office space it shouldn't exist. You don't set up a hotel because you need a hotel room. You use a hotel, you're just picking which hotel to use. And that everyone knows how to use it, and it's a common thing. But you don't need to teach kids this is how you use a hotel room. They all know. Now, office will become like that and is becoming like that, where people say, I need an office, I book an office. And that's what they're doing. And more of our revenue is those people coming in by the day. Got an important thing to do, get a day. Okay, it's cheap support, for whatever it is you've got to do. Companies, so that's total flexibility. The sort of office being only this sort of fixed place, everyone goes to it, becomes an everything platform where you can get whatever support you need. We do podcast studios, we do anything you want, we do. We do sales rooms, we do prop rooms, everything. So that you choose what you want and you get it for the time you need it. And it's sort of that fixed infrastructure, like the world has hotels everywhere. This is what office becomes like in the future.
And this is what I meant when I said, is it a top-down kind of companies needing this or a bottom-up? I think that we're seeing a significant rise in independent work and small, medium businesses, and
Mhm.
this idea that I can't afford an office, don't wanna pay for a full-time office, but, suddenly I need to be here, or I need to be podcasting, or I need a fancy meeting space. I actually remember this is a Regis example. I actually remember I was um, going to meet a lawyer, and I discovered a Regis office. It was all about lawyers. It looked like a lawyer's office. It had
Mhm.
all the setup, and they changed the names of the people on the door. So when I came in, I thought this was the office of the lawyer I was meeting, but apparently an hour later, it became somebody else's office, right?
Yeah,
So I
absolutely.
thought that was a fabulous idea.
It's super efficient. Look, aren't we trying to save the planet? So if everyone has an office and they're traveling around all the time, you get it when you need it. You don't sort of have a permanent
Yeah, just
hotel
in
room
time. Yeah,
anywhere
perfect.
you're going. You get it when you need it. It's
Yeah.
got to change. It is changing, and we're sort of building them at very fast rate. 900 last year, 900 new buildings,
Yeah.
and we hope to do more this 25 year. That so we build them and people come all over the country, all over the world.
So Mark, I always kind of, as we wrap up, ask this question. You're a visionary. You saw this way before people got it, right? So I'm really curious to hear your answer. So what's your vision of the future of where we work? So if you, I don't know, take me, to 2030. How do you see this? What's different than it is today?
What's different is you will choose the most appropriate and convenient place, be that near to where you live, in a city centre, maybe on the moon. Wherever's appropriate, you sort of look at your app or whatever there is at the time. You look at your app, and AI's chosen it for you. You didn't have to think about it. It says you're meeting these people, go there. Okay.
Yep.
And so it sort of becomes these are all business tools in the end. Not They are business tools. They become even more business tools to help companies do more productive work, which is what being in a company is about. That you're there to do whatever you're doing with the highest efficiency.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really
And
glad to
it'll
hear
be
you say that.
everywhere. It's
Yeah.
still today I have to explain to people what we do, but less and less. So but by 2030, you won't have to explain it. You have to explain why you're not using. I don't use that because not.
Yeah,
What is
yeah,
it?
I one of those conversations I had with Rishad Tuwakalawane, he said when he talks to a leader, he asked them, if you started over today, would you build your company this way? And I don't know that if you built a company today, renting office
Well,
space
you
or
wouldn't.
building office space is something that
No.
you would do. That
We
doesn't
have
make
a
sense to
lot
me.
of new companies and fast growing companies have hybrid only policies. They start with a hybrid only. They say we're not going to exactly that. They say why would we do that? Our focus is on getting the right people where they are and focus on the customer. We don't
Yeah.
need office space to do that. No one ever comes to us.
Yeah, and the challenge, I think, and you've put it beautifully, right? The challenge is ultimately figure out a way to curate your culture, your connections, your
Yeah,
innovation, your communication without it showing up as a physical space
yes,
necessarily or a
absolutely.
fixed physical space.
It's an HR issue, not a property. Since when did having a great property, unless you're LVMH selling handbags, but for a company, having a great office space doesn't make a great company. It's the people in it. It's the way they're managed.
Yeah, yeah, although, like I said, we've grown, a lot of leaders, in my generation, I think in yours as well, that we're used to leadership being, I'm sitting in my conference room and the presentations come in and the decisions come in and I walk out the corridor and the people talk to me and that's how I know how to navigate the organization, right?
But AI and technology would do that 100 times better than
Yeah.
walking out of a conference room hoping you're going to bump into someone. By the way, no one's in the office anymore anyway, so you're not going to bump
That's
into
true, and
anyone.
you can't bring them back. So I think we're in agreement. Okay, last question I always end with,
Mm.
because we always, we ask questions, we get answers. I actually want to switch that for a second and ask you, what is the one question you think we should all be asking ourselves these days about the future of work?
We, you know, we should be treating work more seriously, and the question is, am I serious enough about supporting my people to be the best they can be, or am I leaving that? I talk about it, but don't really do it. So the question is there enough emphasis on HR apart from just looking at it from I hire, we nurture, and so on? Is there more we could be doing? And I would say the next 10 years is the competition for great people. It's always competitive, but it's going to get more competitive going forward. To find those brilliant people. I feel that's the hardest thing in our business.
Yeah,
I think
I
for many.
I agree, and I actually like that very much. So the idea is switching to you've got brilliant people, you fought hard to get them, you're
Yeah.
paying them a lot.
Hmm.
What do you need to give them so that they
That's
can
it.
do what you hired them to do?
That's it.
Fabulous. Wow. Mark, thank you for joining me today. For more about Mark and IWG, check out the links in the podcast description. You also find the link to the IWG's Future of Work at Trends Forecast for 2025. Thank you for joining the Future of Less Work, where we're piecing together the ever-changing puzzle of work, one conversation at a time. And remember, the new social contract is a win-win between people and organizations. Your best people do not work because they have to, nor because you tell them to, or you measure them on it. They work because by working for you, they're also accomplishing what's important to them in life. Until next time.